In this video, we are going to talk about work paths and text and how you can use them in your projects. So if you want to follow along with beverage.psd, you can, or you can do this on your own without needing an image. But work paths gives us a way to use shapes and paths and other features of Photoshop to create text along a line or along a curve or along the actual shape itself. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. We'll first start off by using the pen tool. So if you grab the pen tool, shortcut letter P, and we will just create a path around this cup here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click a couple times. Now this isn't going to be perfect. I'd want to go in and really refine these points and make it look nice, but you'll get the idea. We just want to create a path going around here. Now, once we have that path, we can create text on this path itself. So if we go to the text tool and we hover over that line, the icon changes. So this is the normal text tool with a square around it. I don't know if you can see it real well, but it's a type tool and it has some dots around it in a square form. When I move over the path, it turns into a squiggly line. And when I click on that path, you will see that we now have a blinking type tool that we can use. So let's go ahead and turn down this type. It's a little too big, so maybe we can do 36. And let's change the color. This is a black background, so if we write in black, it's going to be hard to see. We'll change it to white. And we'll just go ahead and we will type something in here. So we'll type root beer. Now you can see what happens is it doesn't show the whole text. This might happen to you. And the reason why is because there is actually a start point, an end point, and a midpoint for you to move this text along the path that we've created. So if you go over to the tools and you click on the path selection tool, the first one, you'll see some points highlighted on the path. Let me go ahead and zoom in to see if this is a little easier for you to see on your screen. But we have these different dots that if we hover over them, our icon changes. And you can see that one has an arrow going right, the last one has an arrow going left, and the one in the middle has arrows going both ways. And these are our start, end, and midpoints of this actual paragraph text here, or this path. So if we click and start dragging that endpoint outwards, you can see that we start seeing more of the word because we're opening up the spacing between the first point and the last point. You also notice if I click and I start dragging and moving, those lines move, showing where it's at. And if I go underneath the line, it'll actually flip the text upside down. So this is a way to get text to go either on the top side or the bottom side of that path. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And we'll keep dragging that endpoint until we see the whole word start popping up. Looks like I didn't type it correctly. That's okay, we can fix that. So we have our start point, our midpoint, and our end point. And so we want the words to go throughout the whole length of this path. So we set our end point to the end, our start point to the very beginning, and then our midpoint, if we move that around, you can see that it actually moves the words for us, including the end point. And it's allowing us to shape where we're going to have these words. So we'll just have it nice and even across. Let's go ahead and fix this. So I'm just going to click in there like I normally would with the type tool, and I can just type. So I can go ahead and edit any of this information, and it allows us to see the text, on this path, and we can change the color, we can change the alignment, the font, everything that you would normally be able to do. So I'm going to click on the move tool just to get out of that path here for a second. And in the layers, you can see it's just created a text layer for us, and we no longer see that path. Now we could move the text if we wanted to reshape this, or we can use the path to reshape this because it's actually sitting on that path. So with that selected, if I go back to the path selection tool, you'll see our path actually comes back for us, and then we can make adjustments and edits any way that we see fit. We can also grab that path and we can move the whole path like we normally would, and when we release, it'll update the text for us. So it updates the text on that work path. We can also click any of these points, and if we edit the points, it'll actually update the path also. So if I do something like this, you'll see that it tries to fit that in there. Now with text, it's going to try to skip around like this, and you'll have to mess around with some of the character settings that we looked at before, maybe using some of these leading and tracking things to make it look as good as possible. But you have the ability to fully edit this. So if this path didn't look good to begin with, I can always come back here and reshape it any way that I want to. So that's how we can put text on a work path. You just create a path and you click on it and it adds it to it. You can also do this with shapes. Any of these shapes over here you can use as a work path, and we can even use text as a work path. So let's click the type tool again, and up here at the top we're going to just click, and it's going to create a new type for us. We can see it added a type in layer 1 over in the layers panel. And let's go ahead and just change the size so it's a little bigger. We'll do, say, 100. And we'll click out here. And now let's just type a character. So we'll do the letter C. Let me move this over a little bit. And now we can use this to actually become a path for us also. So if we go over to the text layer in the layers panel and we right click on it, you can see there is a create work path option. And if I select that, it'll actually create a work path around that letter for me. So let's go ahead and hide that character, the actual text layer, so we don't see it. I'm just going to hide it for a minute. And that gives us the ability to work on this. I'm going to just zoom in here so it's a little easier to see. And I'll get my text tool, and the same thing, if I hover around this character, you'll see that icon change to the squiggly line. So here's normal type tool, and there's a squiggly line. If I click on here, and we're gonna have to make this a lot smaller, so let's just do 8 point for now. We can say this is a work path. Now you see what has happened is it's actually created that text along that work path. If I grab the move tool, you'll see that that work path goes away and I can see the text. So now we have the ability to actually create work paths around any type that we have here, and the same rules apply. We can move it around, we can make adjustments to the work path, we can change the start point, the end point, and the midpoint. So as I begin moving the midpoint around this character, it's going to look a little deformed, but you can see it's trying to move around there. I'll go to the outside now, and you can see that it's going to move around this letter for us. And this gives us a way to create work paths around type. Now, if you remember, we talked about glyphs before. So if we open up the glyphs panel, the type tool gives us thousands of glyphs that we can use, and any of these could also be a work path if you think of it that way. So the heart shape, the diamond shape, I could turn those into an actual work path, and then it gives me a whole bunch of other design options to be able to come in here and write text around those work paths. So that's how you do that inside of Photoshop. If you want to have any type of curved text or text following around a path or an angle, you just use work paths, and you can also use any type or fonts inside of Photoshop as a work path also.